This happened back in 1888. I was 35 and just a farmer in a dusty little town in Arkansas. Life was tough and I worked from dawn till dusk. My son had just gotten engaged to Clara, a lovely girl from the area. I thought having her in the family would brighten our days. But soon, everything began to feel wrong. One evening, I saw Clara sitting under the old oak tree in our yard. The sun was setting, and the sky turned orange around her. I thought she looked troubled and wanted to cheer her up. But when I got closer, she didn't look at me. She was staring at the ground, her hands shaking. Chills ran down my spine. I asked if she was all right, and she whispered about feeling trapped. I wanted to help but could tell she didn't want to talk. As days went by, things grew stranger. Clara acted distant, like she was somewhere far away. She would vanish for hours, and the tension in the house became thick. My son tried to hold everything together, but it was clear he was worried. I felt helpless and didn't know how to help. One night, while I worked in the barn, I overheard whispers that made my blood run cold. Clara was speaking to my estranged father. My heart raced. What could they be discussing? I froze, straining to listen. I couldn't make out every word, but I clearly heard, freedom. The word echoed in my mind, heavy and sinister. Things worsened after that. Clara became more unhinged. One afternoon, I found her in the cellar, staring at old family photographs. Her fingers drifted over a picture of my father and me. She looked blank as if in a trance. I called her name several times, but she didn't respond. My son came down and found her like that, and we agreed something wasn't right. But what were we supposed to do? I began to suspect that Clara had some strange connection to my father. Shadows seemed to grow in our home, dimming my son's smile. Then one night, I was pushed to confront them. I stepped into the living room, feeling uneasy. The air felt thick. "What's happening?" I asked, my voice quivering. Instantly, I heard Clara's voice. "You don't have to worry about us." I turned to her, but she wasn't there. My heart pounded in my chest. The room felt icy, and I saw my father standing in the doorway. "Why are you with her?" he asked, but I couldn't speak. Then I realized, nobody else was in the room. Just me, standing in that dimly lit space full of unanswered questions. I rushed outside, looking around. It was still and quiet, just the wind whistling through the trees. My son's laughter used to fill the air, but now only silence remained. I thought about Clara, about my father, and what had happened. I was left alone in our home, the shadows growing darker in my heart. I didn't know what to believe anymore. The next morning, I woke up feeling uneasy. I threw on my clothes and wandered out to the fields. The sun was bright, but it offered no warmth. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I thought about Clara, and my heart ached. Was she truly taken by whatever had whispered to her in the dark? I needed answers. I decided to visit old Mr. Jenkins, a neighbor who had a reputation for knowing everything about everyone in town. As I walked the familiar path to his home, I felt the weight of each step. When I arrived, the door creaked open, and there he stood, his face lined with age but his eyes sharp. "Morning, Jacob," he greeted. I sat down on his creaky porch, and we exchanged pleasantries before I asked, "Have you heard anything about Clara?" His brow furrowed. "Only what folks have been saying. They say she has been acting odd. But you know how rumors are." His words tumbled out slowly, as if he were weighing their importance. "I did hear something peculiar, though. Some folks believe there's been talk of your father's return." The chill ran through me again. Return? Where would he have gone? Mr. Jenkins shook his head. "Nobody knows, but strange things happen when he's around. It's like he pulls the strings." I leaned forward. "What do you mean?" He sighed. "People believed he had a hold over your family. An influence, perhaps." My stomach twisted. Could Clara truly be drawn to him? I left Mr. Jenkins, my mind racing. Clarity had evaded me, but new dread had settled in. I had to confront Clara again, to pull her back from whatever darkness had gripped her. When I reached home, I felt the air shift around me. It was heavy, almost electric. I opened the door, but the house seemed off. Shadows danced along the walls, giving the place an eerie feel. I called out for Clara, but there was no answer. My heart thundered. I moved toward the cellar, where I last saw her. The boards creaked beneath my feet, and as I descended, a sense of foreboding washed over me. I flicked on the lantern, revealing the dim space lined with old boxes and forgotten memories. That S when I saw it. There, on the small table, was an envelope marked with my father's familiar handwriting. My breath caught in my throat. I picked it up, hands trembling, and opened it. The letter inside churned my stomach. It spoke about freedom, about Clara, and choices that would affect not just her but the very fabric of our family. I sensed a presence behind me, a cold shiver creeping down my spine. I turned slowly, the air heavy with anticipation. Clara stood there, pale and distant. "You read it, didn't you?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes," I said, but my voice was shaky. "What does it mean? Why is he involved in this?" A flicker of fear crossed her face, then determination. "It's time for you to know the truth." Clara's words hung in the air, thick and foreboding. I felt the walls closing in, and I knew this was just the beginning. I took a step back, my heart racing. "What truth?" "Clara, you're scaring me." Her expression was distant, as if she were looking through me rather than at me. "He has been watching us," she said, her voice trembling. "Even when you thought he was gone. I can feel it. His presence is." She hesitated, drawing in a shaky breath. "It's in the air like a storm waiting to break." "Clara, who are you talking about?" I was desperate for clarity. The very mention of my father sent a wave of confusion through me. It felt like stepping into a shadow, deeper and darker than I had ever known. "My father," she replied softly, as if that would explain everything. There was something haunting in her eyes, a mix of fear and resignation. It made my stomach ache. "Your father? But he is not here. He left. You said so yourself." I blinked at her, trying to find a connection in the storm of her emotions. "He wasn't as far away as you think. Even in his absence he sent messages. To me." Clara took a step closer, the light from the lantern flickering, casting strange shadows on the walls. She reached out, grabbing my arm. "Jacob, he wants something from us. Something that could trap our family forever." The words sank in, heavy and suffocating. "What could he possibly want?" "What he always wanted," she replied grimly. "Power. Control. He believes it's his right to decide our fates. And I'm afraid I've played a part in it." "What do you mean?" My pulse quickened as I tried to understand. "How?" A sudden crash echoed from upstairs, breaking our charged moment. We jumped apart, hearts racing. The sound faded, but it left an unsettling silence in its wake. "Jacob," Clara whispered. "Do you think we're alone?" I felt my breath hitch in my throat. "No," I said, feeling a knot of fear tightening in my chest. "We need to go. Now." But Clara shook her head. "It's too late for that. If he has really returned, he won't let us leave that easily." I glanced towards the narrow staircase leading back up into the house. The shadows in the corners seemed to pulse with life. Something was wrong, and whatever was lurking in the darkness had begun to close in around us. "Let us just get out of here," I urged, but my voice was barely a whisper. I took a step toward the stairs, and Clara gripped my sleeve, her eyes wide. Before I could move, a dark figure appeared at the top of the stairs, silhouetted against the light. A chill crept up my spine. I had seen that shape before. My heart sank. "Do you really think you can escape me?" The figure taunted, a sinister tone weaving through the air. It stepped forward, revealing a familiar face. One I had thought I'd never see again. "Father," I breathed, realization crashing over me. But before I could react, everything went dark. I struggled to regain my senses as darkness enveloped me. I felt my breath catching in my throat, panic rising like bile. I blinked, but there was nothing, just an inky void. Then I felt it, the cold touch of a hand on my shoulder. I flinched, heart racing. "Jacob!" Clara's voice pierced through the silence, shaky but familiar. I gasped, disoriented. as a faint light flickered back to life. I could just make out Clara's face, her wide eyes mirroring my fear. We were still in the entryway. The figure, my father, had vanished. What just happened? I muttered, my pulse pounding in my ears. Where did he go? I don't know, she replied, glancing nervously around the room. But we can't stay here. We need to find a way out. I nodded in agreement, shaking off the dread that clung to me. But even as I resolved to move, dread washed over me again. What did he mean? Why does he want us? Clara hesitated. I think he believes our lives are tied to some ancient pact. Something he won't let go of. Ancient pact. The words danced in my thoughts, raising more questions than they answered. What kind of pact? Before she could respond, the floor creaked again, louder this time as if answering my question. I turned toward the staircase, where shadows pooled ominously beneath the landing. We have to go, I said, edging towards the back door. There's no time to waste. Clara pulled me back gently, her grip firm. If we go out, we'll expose ourselves. He'll know where we are. Staying isn't an option, I said, my frustration bubbling over. I desperately wanted to understand, but right now, survival was the priority. What do we do then? She asked, desperation creeping into her tone. We find a place to hide. Somewhere safe. I scanned the room. The old cupboard in the corner could work. I turned and began dragging Clara towards it. Just as we reached the cupboard, the lights flickered violently overhead. I felt a surge of energy. Shadows twisted, stretching towards us like hungry fingers. Clara clutched my hand tighter, the air growing thicker. That's it, I whispered, panic rising in my chest. Yes, here. I shoved open the cupboard door and pulled Clara inside, shutting it just in time as a familiar voice rang out, low and threatening. You can't hide from me, Jacob. Not anymore. I felt Clara trembling beside me. What does he want? She hissed, her voice barely above a whisper. Everything, I replied, my heart hammering. He wants everything. Before I could think further, the cupboard door rattled violently. I held my breath, fear flooding through me. The wood shuddered against my palm, the whispered threat growing louder. I could hear him searching, calling for us. Then, as fear tightened its grip on my chest, I heard a sharp, shrieking laugh echoing through the dark. You think you can hide? You're part of me, and soon you will see the truth. I exchanged a terrified glance with Clara. I found myself which blossomed in my chest, an instinct born of horror. Then everything went cold. Clara, I gasped. I felt her hand slip from mine, and before I could react, darkness swept over us both. I woke up gasping for air, the taste of fear still fresh on my tongue. I blinked against the sudden brightness of a dimly lit room. Clara was gone. Panic surged through me as I shot up, searching the corners for any sign of her. I was in another room. Old wooden walls surrounded me, and the air felt stale, heavy with dust. My heart raced as memories flooded back the cupboard. My father's voice, darkness. I forced myself to focus. Where was Clara? Clara? I called, my voice trembling. Can you hear me? Silence answered. I stumbled to my feet, ignoring the ache in my legs. I needed to find her. The room was cluttered with broken furniture and debris, remnants of a life long abandoned. I crept towards the door, pausing to listen for any sounds. It was eerily quiet. Where had my father taken us? I opened the door slowly, wincing as it creaked under the slightest pressure. Stepping into a narrow hallway, I hesitated at the sight of faint moonlight spilling through a cracked window at the end. As I moved forward, I kept my back against the wall, the chill seeping through my clothes. I felt exposed. The last thing I needed was for him to find me again. When I saw it a flicker of movement. I pressed myself closer to the wall, holding my breath. It was Clara. She was crouched over in a far corner, her back to me, but something felt wrong. The way she trembled, the stillness of her body, something wasn't right. Clara, I whispered urgently, inching closer. Are you okay? She didn't respond. My heart dropped. I reached out a hand, ready to shake her shoulder when I heard a low, guttural laugh echo through the hallway. I froze. "No!" I shouted, instinctively stepping back. "Stay away from her." Suddenly, a shadow loomed in the doorway behind me. My blood ran cold as I turned to face my father, his eyes glinting like polished stones. The light cast strange shapes on his face, twisting his features into a nightmarish mask. "You shouldn't have left," he said, his voice smooth yet dripping with malice. "You both belong to me. Get away from her." I screamed, pushing past him. I could not let him take Clara. When I reached her, I roughly shook her shoulder. "Clara, please wake up." Her eyes fluttered open, glazed and distant. "Jacob? Is that you? What did he do to you?" I felt a jolt of fear. He was here," she gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks. "He showed me things I couldn't understand." A chilling realization settled over me. "What did he want, Clara?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He said we're bound by blood, that the pact before she could finish." My father lunged forward, his face twisted with rage. "Enough!" he roared. I grabbed Clara's hand, pulling her to her feet as I backed away. "Run!" I yelled. We dashed down the hallway, my father's breath hot on our necks. The darkness was closing in around us, and I didn't know how we would escape. But I knew one thing. We had to find the truth before it devoured us whole. We bolted down the hallway, a blur of panic and desperation. The sound of my father's footsteps echoed behind us, growing louder as he closed the distance. My heart pounded in my chest. Any second he could catch us. The hall seemed endless, but I kept my eyes fixed ahead, searching for a way out. At the end, I spotted a door slightly ajar. With a surge of hope, I yanked it open and pulled Clara through. We stumbled into a dimly lit room piled high with dust-covered boxes and old furniture. The stale air felt suffocating as we huddled together in a corner. I leaned down, trying to catch my breath and calm my racing heart. "He's coming," Clara whispered, her face pale and tremulous. "We can't hide here," I replied, glancing around the room. I needed a plan. "We need to find a way out." As I scanned the shadows, something caught my eye: a large window at the far end, partially covered with boards but wide enough to slip through. "There," I pointed. "We can escape if we reach that window." Clara nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. But just as we made to move, I heard the heavy footsteps coming closer. "Stay low," I warned, feeling dread clawing at my insides. We crept along the wall, inching toward the window without making a sound. Suddenly, the door swung open, and my father filled the frame, silhouetted against the light. His smile was chilling, a predator stalking his prey. "Did you really think you could get away from me?" he taunted, stepping inside. My breath caught in my throat. I glanced at Clara, her eyes wide with terror. I had to keep her safe. "We'll never be like you," I shouted, my voice trembling but defiant. His smile faltered for a moment, replaced with cold fury. "You have no idea what you're talking about." Then, without warning, he lunged. I instinctively shoved Clara in the direction of the window. "Go!" I yelled. Clara scrambled towards the opening as I turned to face my father, adrenaline surging through me. "You can't force us," I cried, half in desperation, half in anger. He was fast, and I barely dodged his grasp. I ducked, the movement bringing me closer to Clara, who was struggling to push the boards away. "Jacob, I can't," she gasped, her fingers slipping. I glanced back, seeing my father regain his composure, a wicked glint in his eyes. "You think you can outrun me?" In that moment, everything shifted. A loud crack split the air as one of the old beams overhead broke loose, raining dust and debris down around us. The sound startled my father, causing him to stagger back, and I seized the opportunity. "Clara, now!" I yelled. Her determination surged as she made one final push. The boards gave way and she dove through the opening. I followed right behind her, barely squeezing through just as my father roared in anger. We tumbled out into the cool night air, rolling onto the grass. I pulled Clara to her feet, glancing back at the house. The dark figure of my father loomed in the window, shaking his fist. "We can't stop," I urged, grabbing Clara's hand, and we took off running into the trees. Then, through the chaos, I heard something whispering on the wind behind us. A promise or a warning. "You can't escape the blood." I shivered, feeling the weight of my father's words hang in the air. What did it mean? I had to find out, but first we needed to survive the night. We ran through the woods, branches snatching at our clothes and skin as if trying to pull us back. Each step felt like a weight pressing against my chest. I could barely hear Clara's hurried breaths over the thrum of panic in my ears. The shadows around us seemed alive, flickering with every crack of a twig. "Where do we go?" Clara gasped, nearly tripping over a root. I caught her arm, steadying her. The fear in her eyes mirrored my own. "Anywhere but here," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I had to think. The trees were thick, but I knew they couldn't go far. My father would be hunting us, tracking us down. He had always been good at that. We pressed on, deeper into the dark forest. The moonlight filtered through the leaves and patches, illuminating the ground just enough for us to navigate. I wished we could run until the dawn, but my legs were already burning. I needed a plan, somewhere to hide, at least for a little while. Just then, I spotted a faint light ahead. It flickered through the trees, pulsing like a heartbeat. My heart leapt at the sight. "Look," I pointed, feeling a spark of hope. "There's something up ahead." We rushed toward it, the light growing brighter as we neared. When we broke through the trees, I found myself staring at an old cabin. The structure was weathered and sagging, but there was a warmth in the soft glow spilling from the windows. It felt like a sanctuary in the midst of chaos. "Should we go in?" Clara asked, biting her lip. "It's our best chance." I nodded. "We need to hide." We approached the door cautiously. I pushed it open, the creak echoing in the stillness. Inside, the cabin was cozy but worn, with rustic furniture and walls lined with old photos. Dust danced in the air, caught in the golden light of the fireplace. But as I scanned the room, unease settled in. Everything felt too quiet. I swept my gaze over every corner, every shadow. "Stay close," I murmured, urging Clara to follow me inside. She stayed right at my side, anxiety radiating from her. Then, something made me stop. There was a family portrait hanging above the fireplace, a man with a striking resemblance to my father, a woman beside him, and two children, a boy and a girl. The moment my eyes fell on the image, the world around me felt like it tilted. "Jacob?" Clara's voice trembled, pulling me from my thoughts. This can't be," I stuttered, staring at the picture. "Who are they?" I felt a sinking feeling in my gut. Before I could think further, I heard a sound, a scuffle outside. My breath caught. Someone was approaching. "Shoo!" I whispered urgently. Clara's eyes widened in fear, and I saw panic clear on her face. Then the door rattled and slammed open. A shadowy figure stepped inside. "We need to hide." I grabbed Clara's hand, pulling her toward a small nook behind the stairs. We squeezed into the darkness just as the figure stepped fully into the cabin. The whisper of a voice drifted through the air, chilling me to the bone. "They won't escape this time." I held my breath, terrified of what might happen next. The figure paused just inside the cabin. I could see him more clearly now. It wasn't just any shadow. It was my father. His eyes scanned the room, and I felt myself go cold. What was he doing here? Did he already know we were in the woods? Clara squeezed my hand tightly, her body trembling against mine. I could hardly breathe, terrified he would somehow sense us. Every muscle in my body was coiled tight, waiting for him to make his move. He took a step further inside. "I know you're in here. You can't hide from me forever." His voice was low, almost a growl, sending chills down my spine. I pressed Clara's body closer into the nook, praying he wouldn't turn in our direction. I could see his silhouette growing larger as he stepped into the light. There was a darkness in his eyes I had never seen before, a cruel determination that sent a wave of panic through me. "Please, Jacob," I heard him say, the edge of desperation creeping in. "You're being foolish. I just want to protect you." Protect? The word felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I thought of the countless times he hurt me, how he never saw me as his son but as an extension of his will. I peered through the narrow gap between the stairs and the wall, trying to gauge his movements. I noticed his eyes flicker toward the family portrait. They lingered there for a moment, almost nostalgic. Then something in him shifted. He turned abruptly, his voice filling with rage. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. You think you can just run away?" My heart raced. Had he already seen us? I felt like a deer caught in headlights. Clara's grip tightened even more. "What do we do?" she whispered. Her voice was barely above a breath. I didn't know. I needed to stall, buy us time. "Stay quiet," I whispered back, trying to sound calm. Just then, he walked back toward the door, and I saw the shadow move like a predator hunting its prey. Outside, the sounds of the woods swelled, the rustle of leaves, the hoot of an owl. Everything felt heightened. I was frozen, unable to think beyond the fear coursing through me. Then, in a heartbeat, I heard it. A faint scratching noise coming from somewhere behind the cabin. Instinctively, I turned my head. "Did you hear that?" Clara nodded slowly. With a quick glance, I spotted movement through a grimy window. Someone or something was in the back. My father's eyes widened, focusing on the disturbance. I felt a surge of urgency. "We have to go now," I hissed. I couldn't let him corner us here. Just as I pushed myself away from the nook, the door suddenly banged against the wall. My heart plummeted. It was not just my father I had to fear anymore. "Get out," came a voice, harsh and commanding, echoing from outside. That S when I knew it was time to run. We had to escape or face whatever darkness was about to come crashing in. I didn't wait for Clara to respond. I grabbed her hand and bolted toward the back of the cabin. The floorboards creaked under our weight, but I was too terrified to stop. My father's voice echoed behind us, filled with anger and desperation. "We're too close, Jacob. You don't understand what's really at stake." I ignored him. We had to get out before the unknown that lurked outside found us. I pushed open the rickety door at the back and stepped into the cool night air. The woods loomed ahead, a dark wall of trees. Moonlight filtered through the branches, casting ghostly shadows on the ground. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, drowning out everything else. I looked back to see if my father was following, but the door swung shut behind him, blocking my view. "Where do we go?" Clara whispered, panic creeping into her voice. I scanned the darkness, grasping for a plan. "We need to move away from the cabin, deeper into the woods," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside me. Just as I took a step forward, the scratching noise returned, shriller this time. It echoed from the darkness, slicing through the air like a warning. I froze. I didn't want to acknowledge it, but my instincts screamed at me to retreat. "Jacob?" Clara's eyes were wide, reflecting the moonlight as she clutched my arm. "What is that?" "I don't know," I whispered, releasing her hand to listen more closely. The scratching became more aggressive, as if something was clawing its way through the underbrush. "We can't stick around to find out." We darted toward the tree-line, our breath hitching with every step. I could feel the branches slicing against my skin as we pushed deeper into the woods. The moonlight was faint, but I didn't let it slow me down. Every snap of twigs behind us felt like a countdown. Then, as if the woods had conspired against us, a low growl erupted from behind a nearby tree. Clara gasped, pulling back as I instinctively shielded her with my body. I could feel the weight of her terror pressing against my back. "Go!" I yelled, my voice more forceful than I intended. We took off again, zigzagging through the trees, the growl growing louder. I didn't dare look back. My father's shadow loomed large in my mind. But now there was something else chasing us, a primal fear, more visceral than anything I had faced before. Suddenly, I spotted a faint light ahead, flickering like a beacon. "There!" I shouted, pointing toward it. The campsite. As we sprinted toward the light, I could hear the frantic thrumming of my heart. We were almost there, but the growling intensified, echoing off the trees. A figure stepped into the light just as we reached the clearing. My pulse quickened. It wasn't he, my father. Who is there? The newcomer shouted, visibly startled by our frantic appearance. That S when I saw it. A massive shape darting past the trees behind us, moving fast. My heart dropped. Whatever it was coming right for us. Run. The shout thundered from my lips as I grabbed Clara's hand again, pulling her toward the figure standing at the edge of the campfire's flickering glow. Wait. It was a man, rugged and weathered, with a shotgun slung over his shoulder. The firelight danced off his face, revealing a mix of confusion and concern. What's going on? No time. I kept moving, dragging Clara past him as fear propelled us forward. Yet even that voice rose thick in my throat. I didn't know if we were racing toward safety or into a trap. The growling grew louder, a menacing, guttural sound intermingled with snapping branches. I dared a glance over my shoulder as we neared the fire. The shadow surged closer behind us. It was a dark mass, shifting and alive, and I couldn't tell where one part ended and the next began. All I knew was that it was hungry. Get back. The man barked, raising the shotgun, his gaze cutting through the darkness, desperate to defend us. But as my heart raced in my chest, I had no idea if he could protect us from what we were up against. The growling erupted, a feral snarl that echoed around us. No, I cried. The sudden flare of panic jolted me, the dread twisting deep inside. That thing isn't just an animal. I pulled Clara closer as the man scanned the clearing, brow furrowed with determination. Stay behind me. His voice held an authority that both soothed and terrified. The shadow crashed through the trees, and the figure of my father emerged, anger radiating off him like waves of heat. Stop this, he bellowed, eyes locked onto Clara. You belong to me. Cold terror washed over me as I realized he wasn't addressing just her. No, I yelled, but it was too late. I could feel the air thrum, almost serpentine. It pulsated with the dread of a pact long overdue. Get down. The man shouted, aiming the shotgun at my father's unyielding figure. Get away from those kids. But my father only turned to him, a twisted smile burgeoning across his face. You think you can protect them? They're entwined in something far beyond your understanding. Just as he spoke, a flash of something dark and dreadful lunged from the forest, directly at my father. The man pulled the trigger, but the figure dissolved like smoke, vaporizing and burning the air with a heat that left them gasping. Help me, Clara screamed, and I turned in time to see her stumble backward as shadows tried to pull her into oblivion. I lunged toward her, a sharp pang of panic tightening my chest. While I struggled to free her, my father's voice echoed through the clearing, mixing with Clara's frightened cries. You cannot outrun your blood. The words were laced with the weight of years gone by, and they rattled the very core of my being. The gunman took another desperate shot, shards of splintered wood exploding at our feet as he missed the darkness surging ahead. We need to go. Now, he shouted, motioning for us to retreat deeper into the trees. I want to leave her, I roared, clutching Clara's arm tighter. Listen, the man's urgency burned in my veins. We have to regroup. Trust me. As the darkness spiraled closer, sensing our desperation, I had no choice. I clutched Clara's hand, pulling her up from the ground. Stay close. We dashed toward the trees, hearts racing, breath shallow. Heavy footsteps followed us, but glancing back was a pursuit I couldn't afford. The night air was electric, charged with the echoes of looming threats. Amidst the chaos, the forest felt alive, teeming with unseen eyes observing our every move. Trading places in a thick array of trees, the gunman fell behind us, helping navigate through the knots and tangles of branches. Each moment felt stretched, time warping under the weight of dread clutching my heart. And though I sought clarity in the darkness, fear tightened its grip around us. We barely made it through the thicket when I heard Clara's sharp breath catch behind me. I glanced back and saw only a swirl of shadows, yearning to reach out for us. The growl had morphed into a chorus of maddened voices, garbled and desperate like an echo of our own terror. We can't. Stop, the man urged, tugging me along. Just as he meant to push us forward, A violent tremor rippled through the earth, as if a thunderstorm churned below our feet. I fell forward, my heart racing, stumbling against Clara as we found ourselves near a clearing. The silhouetted forms darted behind us but came to a halt at the edge of the trees, hovering around the borders of the light, contorted and twisted, holding back as if waiting for something to unfold. Now, the man yelled again, pushing forward, toward the clearing's edge where the moonlight blazed down, illuminating our frantic escape. As we neared the openness, I knew what I must do. I had to confront it all, my father's lineage, the haunting shadows, and the truth of our blood. Stepping into the moonlight, I turned one last time, finding my father's gaze catching hold of me through the shadows, a moment of clarity amidst the chaos. "You cannot escape who you are, Jacob," he cried. "It will always find you." But I wasn't giving in. I tightened my grip on Clara's hand as the figures loomed, casting long shadows outwards like grasping hands. The air crackled with energy, whispering the secrets of binding bloodlines and ancient pacts that haunted my family. Together, I murmured to Clara, drawing in a deep breath while our hearts thumped in sync. We stepped into the clearing, forcing ourselves under the blazing moonlight. I could feel shadows gripping at my heels, the whispers clawing at my thoughts, but it was time to confront whatever lay ahead. And as we faced the darkness together, the weight of unresolved questions hung in the air, the past entwining us with unyielding grasp. But I was determined no matter what the darkness concealed, our resolve would illuminate the shadows. We would meet the fate my father tried to impose with the light around us. Even as the whispers lingered, I knew. The truth remained withheld in shadows, but together, we would reclaim what was stolen.